Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of Kingdom Geeks Roundtable, where we have basically conversations over things that don't really matter, just to show people how to have conversations. Now, like I said, conversation show with some debate aspects, but it is more about the conversations, how to have conversations over things that don't matter, because at the end of the day, this stuff doesn't matter. So I will introduce the people, and I will stop rambling. So first, he's coming back for a second time. He works with, like I said, the Duck Dynasty people. I would want you to welcome Johnny.
Hello.
And now his opponent, if he's not careful tonight, he's going to have a rough life. He could be in the doghouse. Welcome his wife, Gracie.
Hello, hello.
So let's see if this marriage will stay intact tonight or not, everybody. Are you ready?
I think it'll be fine.
I think it'll be fine, too.
Fine.
I think it'll be fine. So basically, I told y'all what's going to happen. Unlike the last episode, everybody, these guys do know their answers. So yeah, 5 questions. We're going to talk about who thinks that their answer is better. So, Johnny, are you going to be a gentleman and let ladies go first and let your wife pick?
Of course.
Okay, so what do you want, odds or evens, Gracie?
Let's go evens.
Okay. It is even. So do you want to go first or do you want the next opening statement?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay. Well, so the first question is, which story from a movie, TV show, video game, book, comic book, etc., had the most disappointing ending? And so, Gracie, you have 1 minute whenever you start to make your point with your opening statement.
Okay, so this was an easy one for me. A book that I read back in high school called 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. It was about a group of teenagers that get the chance to spend 172 hours on the moon, and what do you know? They get up there and the moon's haunted. There was this whole big battle thing, whatever that happened. One person finally manages to escape and get back to Earth, and they've dragged you through this tension, mild horror, like it's a gripping story. And finally, she gets away, she gets to Earth. Whew, we can all breathe a sigh of relief, right? Right? Great ending. And then you get to the epilogue, and it turns out that it wasn't actually the lone survivor who made it back to Earth. It was one of the doppelganger aliens that took her place. And the doppelganger aliens made it to Earth, started just multiplying, and essentially wiped out all of humanity. And that was the end. It was horrible. I got so viscerally angry that I went through all of that only for it all to be for naught and for humanity to just die off anyways.
Okay, well, that was a little bit over a minute. So, Johnny,
Oh,
would
my
you
bad.
want to give? No, you're fine. You're fine. I let people go over a little bit. A little bit. I just don't want them to get carried away. Like, I would eventually
Yeah,
stop you.
understandable.
So, Johnny, it is your turn.
So I picked the TV show How I Met Your Mother. It is a TV show about a guy named Ted Mosby telling his two 11 or 12-year-old kids how he met his mother, or how he met their mother. The problem is this show is wonderful from beginning up until the very last episode. So it gets to the point where he finally meets the woman that he's going to marry. He marries her, and then, of course, the worst way that you can end a show. Oh, she has cancer and dies, and then you think, oh, that's a terrible ending, but it makes sense. It gets worse. They actually make him actually want to go date a different person from the TV show that they have nothing in common. It's like, really? That whole story was completely ended. We're gonna just ruin everybody's hope for the show.
Okay. Well,
I do remember you telling me about that book, Gracie. And
Yeah.
like honestly, I don't hate the ending. Like it's a pretty normal sci-fi epic kind of horror kind of ending. But I also did not read the book, so I very well could be incorrect on that. But that does seem like the typical like epic horror, like mild horror esque sci-fi type of book.
Okay. Well, my first concern is how much like sci-fi, it wasn't even necessarily horror so much as it was what's the word I'm looking for? Like thriller. Um, how many of those have you read? Because I love the sci-fi genre. It's wonderful. And typically when you're getting dragged through like such a tense, thriller type situation, yeah, a lot of people tend to die, but the ending is usually one person makes it out. Like humanity prevails. Um, this felt like a slap in the face. And part of that was also just the way the ending was written, in that the writer intentionally tried to get you to believe that this girl, she did it. She prevailed. She fought hard. She made it out. She survived. Humanity is safe. And then he comes around and slaps in that epilogue of like, actually, just kidding. We're all dead. And it felt like a slap in the face.
To be
And
honest, I think I actually agree with you. The more I think about it, I'm like, it feels like he was too lazy to write a sequel.
mm,
Because if you think about it, okay, so this book ends on the cliffhanger of it's actually a doppelganger. Write a second book that's about stopping the doppelganger from destroying everybody on Earth. That could be a very interesting book that they could have written. It just feels like they kind of were a little lazy.
yeah, no, absolutely. It did. It reeked of very lazy writing, which honestly, and again, I've watched bits and pieces of How I Met Your Mother, but I haven't watched all of it. And from what you've told me about the ending, it's very similar. Like these disappointing endings tend to come about from just lazy writing. Like they
Hmm.
couldn't figure out a good way to wrap up this epic story that they'd drawn out, so they just kind of said, oh, it's some random girl and she ends up dying from cancer, and we're actually gonna throw him back to that love interest that we kind of teased back in season 2 or something. It's
Yeah.
when they set up this payoff and then they don't know how to do it, and they get so lazy they're like, we just want to end it, so here you go. And that
And
seems
like part of the problem with the way that it ended was they had so even the actors, like I've done some research into like what some of the actors have said after it. They're like, yeah, they filmed like 3 hours of material for the last episode and they cut it down to 30 minutes, and even all the actors hate the way it ended. They're
mm,
like there was written a much better ending for this and they just decided not to use it. So it's like, really? Why would
mm,
you like just basically try to tick off everybody? I'm like, it's not okay.
yeah, no, it's just, yeah, it's frustrating when so much of a story is well done and it's not, the ending is not executed well. It's just, it kind of ruins like the whole story.
I would agree. The way that they ended the book just makes no sense, but it's a small, you have a small, probably a smaller amount of people that have read that book. How You Met Your Mother was like, I think the last episode of How I Met Your Mother had 3 or 4 million people watch it live. So it's like, it's they pissed off a lot of people with that one episode. So just the scale of like endings when it comes to like how many people they angered based off of this, I would definitely say it'd be How I Met Your Mother.
I mean, that's a fair point, but my issue is that it was just one episode, right? There's so much other really great material in How I Met Your Mother. Like you can kind of disregard the last episode. I've talked to a lot of people that they're like, yeah, no, I'll rewatch the show, whatever. I just ignore that last episode. Um, you can't ignore the ending in a book. You can't ignore those last 10, 20 pages. That's the whole point, you know? Um, and it just, God, it really, like the way you described it, How I Met Your Mother, they at least were trying, you know? They did have all the ideas, they did have it all filmed, but for whatever reason, maybe executive producers or something, they decided to cut it down. Okay, cool, whatever. They were trying. They've still got a lot of good material. This whole dang book is ruined. Like it's the culmination of all of the tension we've gone through as readers, the fight that we watched happen, you know, everything going. We're rooting for somebody to make it out of here alive, for the doppelgangers to not get to Earth. And then he says, after all that terror, that pain, that suffering, and everything, it was all for nothing. Everyone is dead. It's such a nihilistic, disgusting ending. Like How I Met Your Mother's distasteful, right? Like, ah, gosh dang it, really? We had to end it this way. Goodness, we could have done this better. But this was just a nihilistic. All our efforts are in vain. We're all gonna die in the end, and it was just gross. So I
So you say that there's people that will rewatch How I Met Your Mother based off of the ending and just cut that out. The vast majority of people have like sworn off How I Met Your Mother because of the way that it ended. It basically tainted the entirety of all 9 seasons of the show.
yeah, but I mean, again, it feels like it's just a distasteful ending. It's not just one great big humanity's doomed in the end, right? It's just, oh, the relationship got messed up and it's not like it's not a commentary on the state of humanity, you know? I feel like the 172 hours on the moon was a thinly veiled comment on the fruitlessness of human efforts.
I also wouldn't say that's a fair comparison because most science fiction kind of things is all like doom and gloom. Like if this one thing happens, the entire world is gone. That's that's basically the plot of like most sci-fi esque
Mm,
things.
I
So
wouldn't.
that's the typical like if we don't stop them, the world ends. Basically, wrote itself. The world ended.
Okay, well, not to like flex my education or anything, but I went through an entire sci-fi literature class at my university, and I read a ridiculous amount of short stories and everything else, science fiction, since the genre's conception. And I will agree, there is a lot of world-ending scenarios in science fiction. However, a lot of modern science fiction, so many of these stories, especially the ones that have some renown to them for being well written, whatever, popular, there's always some kind of hope, you know? There's some kind of reason for continuing. You see more of the doom and gloom, everything's ending in like older sci-fi short stories, but those are usually written to give a particular point, to point something out of like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't continue in this direction because this is what it's going to look like, right? This wasn't the we shouldn't go in this direction or else we'll all die. This was just a general blanket. Humanity kind of isn't going to make it because it doesn't matter what we do. We're all just going to die. And that felt very antithetical to so much of the sci-fi that I've read.
Yeah, but like one of the main issues that most people have with How I Met Your Mother is like, yeah, the mom actually died in the end, but she gets like maybe over the all the episodes that she's in, you probably see her for all of maybe 15 minutes out of the 9 seasons that the show is running. And it's like super quick. She's basically, we're just going to kill her off real quick. And it's such a awful way to end a show. Like, at least I'm going to throw another show out there that actually had a good ending. Friends, another sitcom, a very similar kind of show. But the way that it ends is on a decent note. And they actually decided to make it end properly instead of we're just going to basically crap on how everybody feels about this and just make this horrible.
Okay, well, I think that we can just do closing statements if that's okay with you guys.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first, Johnny, you get to go first with your closing statement for a minute. Whenever you start, I'll start it.
Is that it? Okay. So the reason why it's such a terrible ending is Robin is one of the friends in the friend group of How I Met Your Mother. Him and Ted date for like a short period of time, and it clearly is never going to work. And then they just force them together at the end of the show, despite nobody wanting that. It's honestly just a disgusting way to end a show. Basically, it.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. And then, Gracie, whenever you start talking, I'll start it.
Okay. My thing about 172 Hours on the Moon is that it has no message to it, and it isn't written purely for entertainment. Any kind of message you could ascribe to it is just that simple nihilistic human effort is fruitless and we're all just going to die in the end. And that's not a message. It's not a good one, and there's no way to truly entertain when you've got such an ending that communicates just such despair and gloom. And so that's why I think it's a far more disappointing ending than How I Met Your Mother, which is a very tasteless ending, but it's not just this nihilistic, hopeless garbage. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay, awesome. Now on to the next question. So, question number 2. I feel like this was a really interesting one that I came up with. I'm proud of it. I don't think
You should be.
anyone. Huh?
I said you should be. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I tried to come up with really creative ones. And John doesn't like my creative questions, with what AI worlds, you'd want to be taken over by, but
Yeah.
Because
anyway.
there's not one.
I know, but that's the point. Like, which one's the one that's the least bad?
Yeah.
What alien from any video game, movie, show, book, same thing, would be the worst to be hunted by? And so, Johnny, you get to go first. So whenever you start, I will time you.
Yeah, so I picked Predator because if you really think about how Predator is as an alien, it is probably one of the most terrifying things to be hunted by. For one, they have all kinds of technology that they can use thermal and a bunch of other different ways to be able to see you. But they're also fierce predators that just want to maul and rip your spine and skull off to keep as a trophy. They're pretty freaking terrifying. And on top of that, and if any of you guys have watched the movies, I cannot remember which movie it is, but to kill one of them, they literally had to drop a tactical nuke on their own country to kill the predator. because their military and nobody else could kill it. So they literally had to basically make their country, part of their country, a nuclear wasteland.
Okay. And now, Gracie, it's your turn. Whenever you start talking, it'll start.
The one I chose for this is the alien entity known as the Inhibitors in Alastair Reynolds' Revelation Space Trilogy. Another book. I like books, clearly. The thing about the Inhibitors is that they are almost an existential kind of threat. When they realize a society has reached a certain level of technological advancement, they show up and they wipe you out, period. There is no fighting back. People tried, they don't exist anymore. The whole part of this and the book series is that you just have to run and hope they don't catch up to you. I think at one point they even have to split the fabric of the universe and jump into a parallel universe just to escape. So there is no fighting back. There's just, can we get away fast enough? And I feel like that's absolutely terrifying.
Okay.
My main thing about Predator is that, yes, they are super terrifying. Yes, they're incredibly difficult to kill. And they're just a horrifying thing to be hunted down by. I will absolutely agree with you on that. But here's my thing, and you said it yourself. They can still be killed. Yeah, you got to nuke a whole city or half a country. Like, there is a massive toll taken when you go to kill one of these things, but you can still kill it. That's the whole existential threat of the Inhibitors, is that you can't kill them. You can't fight back. People,
Actually, you can fight back.
the Inhibitors?
Just 100%. Very easily.
Jonathan.
Just make sure your society never reaches the technologically advancedness that it needs for them to come attack you. Boom, done. You're never going to be attacked by them.
Here's the thing, Lovey. One, nobody really knows exactly what that point is, right? Because all they know initially about the Inhibitors is they see what's left of the people they've already annihilated, right? So they don't have, it's not a clear cut, here's a letter the Inhibitors send you that's like, hey, you're about to reach, faster than light travel. If you get to that point, we're going to take you out. Like, no, they don't do that. They just watch, right? And the thing with technological advancement is, how are you going to stop a society from advancing? Like, come on. Wait, just take a look at, like, any kind of outbreak. Like, it's, gosh, I hate to use this example, but let's think about COVID, right? Supposedly, we were all supposed to lock down in order for our safety. How many people actually listened to that? And that's only for a single planet, right? So in the instance of a single planet, people were told, hey, we have to do this for the safety of all of us. And a good massive percentage said, actually, we're not going to do that. So when you think about the vastness of space, right? Humans at this point have been scattered throughout the galaxy, like they're all over the place. How on earth are you going to impress upon all of them, hey, we need to stop making technological advancements that are going to make our lives easier, that are going to help with XYZ, medical advancements, whatever. We have to stop this so that we don't get annihilated. Like, people aren't going to listen. Some might, but a massive portion will not.
Another problem with the example you gave, I don't consider that to be hunted by. If they're just going to wipe out the entire planet, boom, boom, you're not being hunted. You're just there's no hope. There's nothing you can do. You're not being hunted. You're just being destroyed. With Predator, you're actually being hunted. Their whole thing is they want to hunt you and to kill you, and they want you to be as strong as humanly possible, because they want the hardest fight that they can possibly be. And the example I gave of So it was actually in Indiana, was the state that they were in when they ended up nuking Indiana to kill a single predator. And there's hundreds of thousands of them. So if one predator could make the United States decide we have no hope but to nuke our own country and basically make our country uninhabitable to kill a single one, an invasion would basically be able to do the exact same thing as what you're talking about. Basically be able to wipe out the entire planet just like that. Because a single one of them was scary enough to make them literally, basically, almost make their country, part of the world, uninhabitable, just based off of one. And if you had thousands of them, it'd basically be kind of like the Man of Steel, Zod, in trying to take Earth as its new planet. It'd basically be the exact same thing. They could just wipe out everyone in almost an instant and without being able to be stopped.
It's a fair point, but my thing is that with the inhibitors, like you can run, right? You can absolutely run away from them. You don't have to sit still and let them come to you and annihilate you. But they will follow. They will track you down. And that is being hunted, right? Like if I'm out in the woods and I'm looking for a deer so that we can have some meat for the winter, like that's hunting. Anything that you are specifically focused on trying to track down and kill, destroy, whatever, like that's the definition of hunting. So yeah, the inhibitors will hunt you down.
I don't consider it being hunted when it's just we're destroying the planet. That's not being hunted. That's just we're just destroying the planet.
Well, that's the thing. They don't destroy the planet itself. No, like the planet gets to stay. Any kind of ruins, whatever. Their concern is we're killing the people. Like we're getting rid of the people. We're tracking them down. We're tracking this race down. We're getting rid of them. So it is hunting. They're not just like it's not a Death Star.
So cool.
Where
You're
they
just
hang out.
destroying the planet. That's basically the definition of destroying the planet.
Animals get to stay. It's not like a Death Star hanging out in the sky that's going to reduce it to nothing.
But there's basically that planet is worthless now.
There's still resources. A different race can get to that planet and live on it and use the resources there. The planet still exists. Like it is specifically just the race that the Annihilators deem too technologically advanced. They couldn't care less about the ecology, the animals, the flora and fauna of the planet itself. Their concern is getting rid of that race of people.
It doesn't. I mean, to be honest, I don't consider that being hunted though, because like Predator isn't honest. Like it's like a mountain lion. They're legitimately hunting you. This is just we're wiping the planet out.
Well, I mean, consider any species that has been hunted to extinction. It's a similar concept of there is hyper focus on like dodo birds, right? There's this hyper focus on that one species, that one animal, and we continue to kill it specifically until they're all gone. And oops, now they're gone. Now they're extinct. It's a similar concept, except they're just going for extinction from the outset, right? It's not that they've chosen to just hunt and, oh, we accidentally made the dodo birds extinct. They set out and said, we are hunting the dodo birds to extinction. The end result is the same. They're still hunting, right? It's just they have a different initial mindset.
That's fair, I guess. Whatever.
It's semantics. I think we've hit the point of discussing more about semantics than the concept itself.
Because my problem with this is it's just a book. Like when you think about it, it's just a book. Because like when you think of Predator, it's like legitimate about a specific country, like the United States. For some reason, Earth is like the place that they like to kill people in because humans strong. This is we're just going to wipe out a planet because people are technologically advanced.
Well,
I don't see that as like, is this, are they actually aliens, or is this just an entity that's wiping people out? Because that's my problem with books. I don't read a lot of books. So when I think about this, I don't consider this as like all that valid. Like I get it could be from alien, from book, whatever, but this doesn't feel like an actual alien. It just seems like an entity that's just going to wipe out everything.
so the way that it comes across in the book, right, is you are following these multiple different like crews that are like you are actually following boots on the ground, human beings, cool, whatever. And they are coming across the evidence of what the inhibitors have done. So it is the slow discovery, the slow dawning terror of there was an entire race of sentient beings, non-human sentient beings on this planet at one point in time. We can see their artifacts, we can see what's been left behind. And for some reason, they're all gone without a trace. We don't know what happened to them. And like, consider it this way: you're slowly discovering that a different sentient race decided to take them out in one fell swoop, right? And you start finding clues as to what happened. You start realizing, hey, wait a minute. This third sentient race might be coming for us. We don't know what they look like. We don't know what they sound like. We don't know when they're coming, but they are. Consider like that dawning horror, that absolute terror of there is something coming for us and we don't even fully comprehend what it is. We don't fully comprehend what it does. And at one point, there's, I think it's a ship's captain that she decides she's going to take a stand. And she is gathering up this technology, like this massive weapon, right? That the second race that no longer exists had developed. And she's like, I'm going to use this and I'm going to fight the inhibitors, right? And everybody else is like, nah, we got to get out of Dodge. Like, this is, no, you were going to die. And she's like, nope, I'm going to take a stand. And they come. And she takes her stand and she dies. Like this weapon that she commandeered, it does absolutely nothing for her. And so this is all the knowledge that the humans that we follow in the story are going on off of. Is like, they're coming. We don't know, as far as we can tell, there's no way that we can stop them. We don't know what they look like. We don't know how quickly they're coming after us, but they're coming. And that's a horrifying thought. That helplessness of this thing is just looming ever closer, ready to take you out. Like, to me, that's the most terrifying thing. Much more terrifying than a physical threat that you can see, that you can plan for, right? Even if that plan
That's
is
the problem. That's the problem. You can't really plan for a predator because they can also be invisible as well. So there's no planning for it. They could literally just come in, you dead, and leave.
But they can still bleed, and we know that they can bleed, right? We know that it's possible. We know that it's still a flesh and blood thing. Like, there's substance to it. It's real, right? We don't know hardly anything about the inhibitors. They're just coming, right? And they're effective.
Another one of my problems is, like, yes, it's terrifying to an extent, but the thing is boom, you're just going to be wiped out, and there's nothing you can do about it. Something that predators love to do is they like to kidnap people, throw them on an island, and then hunt them. So you're literally going to live on a random planet and try to survive. They're their whole goal is to terrify you until you die. Their goal is to torture you to death by just terrifying you. With your inhibitors, yeah, it's terrifying that you're gonna die, but you're just gonna get wiped out. Predators like to play with their food. They want you to fight back and actually have to try to put up a. And the thing is like if you actually kill one, it has a self-destruct sequence that's gonna kill you anyway. So it's like there's on the one hand you have your inhibitors that you're talking about that's honestly kind of scary because there's nothing you can do about it. It's basically the inevitable. You're just gonna die. But then on the other hand you have predators which their whole goal is to literally hunt you and terrify you until they kill you.
So, I mean, here's one of the other things is, you keep saying like, oh, you're just gonna get wiped out, it's whatever. But again, there's so much unknown about the inhibitors. They don't actually know how the inhibitors kill, right? They don't know how that goes down. It could be quick. It could be like the Death Star, a million voices cry out at once, and then they're all silenced, right? Or it could be something horrible and painful, something that takes a while. Like they don't know. To me, that's
This
so
does
much
not
of.
sound. This doesn't sound like a very good example, though, because we know nothing about them. Predators. I can actually talk about different predators and from different clans and of different ranks and different things of that nature. This we know nothing about, so it's just like, oh, cool. It's something unknown. Cool. Everybody's dead. There's no conversation to be had. It's just it's the inevitable of they're going to come here, they're going to kill you, it's over. With predators, you actually have the ability to actually have a conversation about, oh, why is this specific predator terrifying, and why did it reach this certain rank within their clan?
Okay, and I think that we'll start closing statements right now. So let me find this bell. Okay, Gracie, you get to go first. So whenever you start, I'm going to start.
So the thing with the inhibitors is, yes, they are a great big unknown, but I think that is what makes them exceptionally terrifying because they're not a threat that we can rationalize. They're not a threat that we can understand. They're just there and they're coming. And from what I recall in the book, they have to resort to going to an alternate or a parallel universe just to escape them. And those are some drastic measures to avoid being hunted down. And while I agree that predators are super scary and super terrifying, they're physical beings. They can be understood at least a little. They can be rationalized. We can wrap our heads around them. And I feel like there's so much more horror in the thing that we can't fully understand, that we don't know, that it's just death and it's coming.
Okay, Johnny, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so there is a parallel universe that you can survive these people. Cool. So you're not just going to get wiped out. There's always a chance that you're just going to survive. Cool. Not as terrifying then. Predators are once they pick you as their target, they're literally going to not stop at anything until you're dead. And then they're going to cut your head off and literally keep your skull as a trophy because that's how they rank up in their clans. So by your own definition, you just gave an example of how they can escape and be okay. With predators, there's not that. It's they come in on their alien ship, wipe out whoever they're here to wipe out, and then they leave. yes, they can bleed. That is true. They were made into a movie, but from all of the research and stuff that I have seen, the movies actually nerf how strong the predators really
Okay,
are.
Johnny. That's like over a minute, so we'll call it there. Well, cool. Well, I got a question actually for Gracie. When was this book written, out of curiosity?
Uh, let me find it. Um, let's see. Revelation Space, the first novel, was published in 2000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I'm wondering if the people from BioWare took inspiration from these guys to make the Reapers in Mass Effect.
Oh,
Because it sounds similar, but it's not 100%. And
yeah.
I don't want to go too deep into it, but I'll just explain for everybody just because we're talking about it. So, like every 50,000 years, this like alien robotic race basically comes to the Milky Way and wipes out all of like basically advanced civilization life. So they wipe them out, leaving the lesser species there, you know? And it's like this cycle of coming back every 50,000 years and just wiping out advanced civilization and just leaving the lessers there. And it's just like, you know, they come and like, oh, well, these people are here, but they're not anymore. So like you're
Mm,
talking about that made me think of, I wonder
yeah.
if like this is inspiration from the Reapers.
Yeah, possibly. I just looked it up. The first Mass Effect game came out in 2007.
Oh, I
So,
know when it came out.
uh, yeah,
That's why I was curious about
yeah.
this book. So
Yeah,
it's possible.
sorry.
No,
It
no,
is
you're
possible.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So the next question is, you know, before I actually get into it, I've actually played D&D with these guys. Uh they're fun, they're very interesting, especially Johnny. I'm not going to say some of the stuff he does, but he has some very interesting things he does in his characters. But I believe you both actually DM too, right?
yeah. Hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting question. So the best D&D multi-class. So what is the best D&D multi-class? And Gracie, you get to go first, so whenever you're ready.
I will initially disclaimer. Yes, I played D&D for years. Yes, I have done some DMing. I've never actually done multi-classing myself. So this is probably not going to be like a mind-blowing answer, but I love the idea of a fighter and a warlock simply because I feel like the fighter's higher level action economy could go really well with the warlock's cantrips, especially if you take something like Spell Sniper and you can just pop off Eldritch Blasts from hundreds of feet away. I think that would be
240
really
to be
fun and really
exact.
cool. Yes, thank you. I feel like that would be really fun and really cool, and to also be a very strong melee character on top of that feels well rounded. Just feels like it could be a fun time.
Okay, Johnny, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. So there's so many different ways you can take this. You can go for, okay, cool, just interesting multi-class, or you could go for highest damage, something that for storytelling could be like very, very interesting for storytelling, and that's where I went. And I picked a paladin and a warlock because both of them got their powers from somebody else. Paladins through most likely more of a religious thing, kind of like a church or priesthood, whatever. Warlocks typically they have to make a pact with some kind of like fae or demon or something of that nature, and the fighting within themselves between the two of those could be a very very interesting uh, uh, multi-class to play, and I'll explain more in like the actual talking time. I'll stop here.
Okay.
the reason why I picked a paladin and a warlock is because, okay, so let's say you're you're a you went to so and so priest and you got their divine power from so and so god in this universe. We'll say it's Zeus because that's just a well-known god or whatnot. We'll say you went to Zeus and say, "Hey, I need the power of lightning," and to be able to defeat the enemy, the Fae or whatnot. Because Paladin's one of their demons and Fae are typically one of the uh, big enemies of Paladins. But before you went to Zeus, you were in like a really difficult time, and the only way out of it was to make a pact with a demon. And so you're having to balance this idea of you've got this demon who's you've made an oath to, or a blood oath, or whatever kind of oath you've made to this demon, and you're having to try to figure out how to get out of that because you no longer believe in that, and you want to join the good side and actually fight the demons and the Fae and whatnot as being a paladin. So like it's a very, very interesting concept of uh from like storyteller's perspective, but also they mesh very well because with warlocks, we're not going to talk about 5.5. The new versions kind of just suck, and I will say it. It's not been well done. But in 5e, there you can take the multi-class of, let's say, your Oath of Redemption Paladin and a Pact of the Blade Warlock. So it actually would work out like in game and be a very strong multi-class as you play it. But yeah, so that's where I would say kind of about that. But do you have anything to say, Gracie?
Um, I mean, yeah, I see. Okay, this one topic is difficult for me because, like I said, I haven't really dealt much with multi-class, and Johnny does so much research, ungodly amounts of research into D&D multi-classing. So he's a lot more knowledgeable in this than I am. Um, and I
Well,
like the
more just subclasses in general.
yeah. And I do like the idea of going at it from the storytelling angle. Love me some good storytelling tactics. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I really like the idea of having a well-rounded character that's both really strong in melee, which you see in the fighter, right? Fighter is your classic melee. We are here to throw down with swords, spears, whatever. Like this is the whole thing, and we're really good at it. Um, but also coupling that with a little bit of what the warlock can do as a magic caster. And initially, when I was thinking about it, I was trying to decide what magic caster would be good to mix with the fighter, and um, I considered wizard, but goodness, wizards are just they're such glass cannons, and I feel like it would be difficult to balance like your stats when you're leaning into the wizard side of things. And with warlock, there's already like the hexblade, right? So there's already some precedent for a warlock that's more of a melee character than just, a back of the line caster. Um, and yeah, I love the action economy of fighters, especially once you start getting higher level action surge, you can just keep hitting and hitting and hitting. And the idea that you could be right up close with an enemy in like good melee fight, swinging your sword, doing whatever, and in that same turn spin around and pop off Eldritch Blast or something. right? And especially spell sniper, wonderful, wonderful feat. I love it. If you got spell sniper, you hit them from 240 feet away. You could hit somebody from across a battlefield, right? You never have to move. You never have to disengage from your current opponent and leave yourself open for an opportunity attack. I just feel like mechanically, it's just really cool. And it would just make for a lot of really awesome fights. So,
There's actually several problems that I could see with that.
of course.
Might as well just play just a straight fighter. Just play an Echo Knight fighter. Cool. There you go. And then take a feat to be able to get Elder's Blast, because that's actually an option. Boom. Problem solved. You don't have to multi-class. Also, anything with like using fighter as a multi-class, if you're just going to do a single multi-class, is basically just whatever, because the amount of, especially in 5e, if most classes, like almost every class in the game, could multi-class with a fighter. Just take 2 levels of fighter to get action surge. Boom. There you go. I have action surge now. I can attack multiple times every turn. And if for people that don't know what action surge is, basically in D&D, you get an action, a bonus action, and a reaction on your turn. Using action surge, you basically get an additional basically an additional turn to be able to do whatever. But basically, any class, period, could just take 2 levels of fighter to make them stronger. It is literally the most basic thing you could possibly do when it comes to multi-classing. So, I mean, does it work? Yeah, but you could do that with like you said with a wizard. It works with a wizard because despite what most people think, you can cast multiple spells on one turn. There's several feats that allow you to cast spells via feat, whatnot. You literally just action surge, use your feat to cast a spell, and use your regular action to cast a spell. You're casting multiple spells on a turn. And I'm sorry to whoever DMs I just decided to ruin their campaigns because I just told their players broken stuff. And it's within the rules. So it's not like a DM can just be like, it's not in the rules. Actually, it is. So that's my problem when it comes to multiclassing. I think it needs to be thematically like really cool. Because like other ideas that I've heard of when it comes to multiclassing, like if you're going for the highest damage, you just do a paladin and a rogue because of sneak attack and smite. You're gonna be able to pump out the most damage possible. But D&D is not all about just doing damage. You actually need to tell a good story within whatever world you're in. And when it comes to that, I would say having a paladin who is very much built in we're going to keep our oath with whatever god, like at my example before, Zeus. And then you've got the wildness of warlocks who are trying to basically cause chaos with whatever fiend or demon or whatever they've decided to take as their pack leader or whatnot. So like I feel like you could tell a much better story and a much more interesting story with a paladin and a warlock. Sorry, that was a lot of talking.
No, you're good, love. I'm just sitting here laughing at myself because never did I think there would be a day where I'm the one arguing on mechanics side and you're the one arguing on the storytelling side.
Well, when it comes to multiclassing is just boring.
I get
like
it. No, 1,000%.
Like multiclassing is very, very interesting. You can do a lot of interesting things with multiclassing, but most of the time you can just do that being a straight class and be able to do just as much and become stronger. Because if you don't actually stick with the class that you're going and you do multi-class, you're not going to get that epic boon that you'll get at level 20. You're basically cutting yourself out from being able to get that at the end of the campaign. Let's say you make it up that your campaign actually makes it to level 20. You're not getting that crazy strong thing at the end of the campaign.
Yeah.
Before the big fight. It's in a lot of ways it's better to just go straight class. Unless you're trying to tell a good story.
Right. Well, so if we're wanting to come at it from a storytelling angle, here is what you can do with a fighter warlock, right? Because fighters we know to be the melee character, right? They don't really do magic, like, storytelling wise, right? They're your guardsmen, they're your military, they are the strong, steady, they are good at fighting with sword, shield, spear, what have you, right? But to throw the warlock in there, because warlocks, as you mentioned, warlocks didn't study for their magic. They weren't born with a magic innately. They had to seek it out and go make a pact with some kind of entity that decided, yeah, sure, I'll grant you magic, right? Like, you wandered into the Fey Wilds and you met a Fey Lord, and you struck a deal and you get some magic in return, right? So what on earth would drive someone who's so strong and so steady and who might even take pride in their physical prowess to go seek out magic with an entity that most likely doesn't have their best interests at heart, right? This isn't some deity that you're giving devotion to, right? And they're rewarding you for your devotion. No, no, no. This is some kind of sketchy entity with their own motives that you're making a pact with. So clearly, this fighter has hit some kind of breaking point, some kind of tragedy that has driven them so far as to say, all right, fine, my physical prowess isn't enough. I can't do this without something else. And that right there can make for a good story, because now you've got a character that's in conflict with themselves, right? Because for whatever reason they need the magic. They had to make a sketchy deal to get it. But
Actually, they don't. That's the problem. Is there's something called an Echo Knight fighter that can cast magic. They can cast Fireball. So you don't even have to multi-class to be able to get that magic ability. That's one of my main problems with fighter, is because of all the different multi-class options within fighter. They basically make it to where you can do everything, and there's no point in multi-class fighter because
okay,
you
but
get more for just staying in.
so what is the extent of magic though that a simple subclass can do? Is it the same extent? Because Warlock is going to give you a wider breadth of magical prowess than perhaps just a simple subclass would, right? Again,
Nope.
like, this isn't my area of expertise.
Unfortunately, because warlocks are actually technically a half caster, so they basically, by taking the Echo Knight subclass, you're also half caster. So boom, there you go, 2 half caster. You're basically getting the same level of magic. The only thing that is different about warlock is their spells are always cast at the highest possible level. So you only get 2 spell slots, period. Like throughout the whole campaign, like every time you rush, you'll get those 2 back. But you get 2 spell slots that you cast at max level of whatever level you're at. So I think level 11 is 5th level spell. So if you're a level 11 warlock, you can cast any of your spells will be cast at 5th level if they can be upcast. So there's not, like, when it comes to like the magical abilities, you don't get all that much more out of multiclassing into a warlock. for the magical abilities than just staying as an Echo Knight fighter.
Okay, but now we're going back to arguing mechanics of the thing, right? From the storytelling side, Johnny, the storytelling side. Let's get back to that. I'm good at that one. Really, think about it, because so the warlock, you're casting everything at the highest level you possibly can. So it's not as much magic as if you were a wizard or a sorcerer or a cleric, what have you. But it's always at its maximum. So again, storytelling, right? What is it about this fighter that they needed a magic? They needed to make a deal that gave them explosive levels of magic, right? It's like the warlock is like your bazooka, right? There's no changing down to a bow or a crossbow or that. Okay, now we've got a gun, or no, the warlock, when they cast a spell, boom, it's a bazooka flying out every single time. So storytelling, what put this fighter in a position where they had to get explosive levels of magic like that? That's a cool story.
That's also not how it works, though. They so they throw out their magical abilities is the highest level of their level. So if they're only a level 3 warlock, their warlocks actually only cast magic to the highest level of warlock, their class level. So let's say they're level 5, which is level 3, third level spells. That means the maximum spell, and that's all they go in Warlock. They only go 5 levels of Warlock. Means the maximum height of that spell can only be third level. So you're not really getting that much higher, stronger magic by multiclassing. You're actually hurting the magical abilities that you get by just staying a straight class.
Okay, but consider it conceptually, right? As a warlock, yeah, sure. When you're at low levels, your spellcasting is going to be pretty normal, right? But as you increase in your spellcasting, you can't go backwards, right? Like a cleric can decide, let's say we're in a fight and I'm going to use inflict wounds, right? I can gauge what's necessary, what's not necessary, right? I can say, I really only need to use a second level slot, right? So something lesser. But as you gain that experience as a warlock, as you get higher spellcasting levels, you can't go backwards. It's always going to be upcasted.
So are you saying this character is going to be mostly warlock, very few levels fighter?
Oh no, Jonathan, I'm just trying to make an argument because that's what we're here for.
We can end it there. You're okay with that?
Yeah, sure. Oh.
Well, cool. Well, let me go back to my notes to see who gets the first one. I believe it's Gracie, but I just
think it would be
to
me.
make sure.
I think
yeah. It is actually Johnny. That's why I write things down. So whenever you're ready.
Yes. Yeah. So what you're basically wanting to do with a fighter and a warlock, I'm already doing with a paladin and a warlock. It's a much deeper and better way to tell a story, with also being just as strong, in game. I think you'd be able to tell a much better story with a paladin and a warlock than you would be able to just a fighter and a warlock. Because honestly, it's a pretty basic way of picking a multi-class. With a fighter and a warlock, fighter needs something. I make a pack. But the conflict of interest between having your god and having this fiendish creature on your shoulder, basically trying to say everything that your god is saying is incorrect. Listen to me, and it's like this whole back and forth, like angel and demon on your shoulders trying to get you to do different things. Much, much better and more interesting story.
Okay, that's good. And whenever you're ready, Gracie.
So I hear what you're saying, but I still think that the fighter warlock, as basic as it might be, would still be a really fun concept. And honestly, it doesn't have to be anything flashy. It doesn't have to be anything deep. A lot of times, simple is best, and especially if somebody's wanting to initially get into multi-classing, something that's a bit more simple might be easier to learn from the outset and before they get into the deeper trenches of multi-classing. And I think that there's still a lot of really fun, um, storytelling stuff that you can go into depending on how you want to play it. If you want to play the flip side of a warlock who decided their magic wasn't enough and they needed to have that physical prowess. If you want to do the fighter who realizes that they need something more. I just think it would be a really cool, really fun time.
The next one is, what two franchises would make an amazing crossover? So this question was inspired by my childhood. So if you know anything about Fairly Odd Parents and Jimmy Neutron, is that they're both on Nickelodeon, and they had a crossover event. So thinking about this, I'm like, what would make an amazing crossover? And so, is Johnny? Yeah,
Yes, I
Johnny, you
start.
get to go first.
Yeah, so I picked the crossover of Firefly and Star Wars because I would love to see, like, most people would be like, that's just Han Solo and his crew in the Millennium Falcon. No, I would disagree with that. From what I have watched, I haven't actually finished Firefly yet, but from what I've watched of Firefly and all of the Star Wars I've watched so much Star Wars. It would be a more morally gray um, group of basically whatever you. Oh, I forgot my brain. Um, Man, I blanked. I'm gonna stop here because I blanked.
Okay, that is totally fine. Gracie, you're up.
So to harken back to you, it's funny that you mentioned Fairly Odd Parents and Jimmy Neutron because the creator of Fairly Odd Parents also made another really cool series that I loved as a kid called Danny Phantom. And there's so many really cool themes in Danny Phantom that didn't get explored because it was a kid's show, right? Um, and I feel like if we could do it PG-13, right? We can get a little bit more real about, hey, these are ghosts, you know, like these are dead people. There's a lot of there's a lot of trauma and stuff there, right? If we could crank it up to a PG-13 rating and then bring it into the DC universe, particularly like Batman, Justice League, that realm, I think that would make a really, really fun crossover.
Wait, are you switching things that you're doing?
Yeah, I did at the last minute.
Okay,
I'm
hey,
sorry
I'm
if that
fine
was
with
for
that.
a loop,
I'm
but
fine with that.
okay.
Hey, I mean, I think
Okay.
that's more
Well,
interesting than what you came up with. I mean, I'm just surprised. I'm
right.
like, okay, so just for people listening, I'm gonna keep this in, by the way. Like
Okay.
she originally sent Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm like, where is she going with this?
Right. Well, so I said Star Wars and Star Trek because
Yeah.
I was sitting in a moment and I was like, I can't come up with any crossovers whatsoever. I can't think straight. So I just said the first one that came to mind.
And that's
then
totally
I was
fine.
thinking it more.
Like as long as you're sticking with that, I don't care. Like this is going to be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Firefly and Star Wars, my love.
Yes, Star Wars and Firefly. Could just imagine with me a more morally gray Han Solo crew going through the galaxy doing odd jobs. Because the people in Firefly are not all that. They're not great people. They're not bad people, but they're not great. So it would be very, very interesting because it would be like a slightly bad but slightly good people at the same time. Like you would see them working with the Republic, that you'd see them working with the Empire, or all sorts of different people. It'd be very, very interesting thing. Because for me, I would love another show, kind of like Rebels, but more PG-13, kind of like what Gracie was saying. Because Rebels was definitely more a kid show than the Clone Wars was. And I would love to see something that's a little bit more morally gray, that has like a very interesting storyline to it.
So where does the Star Wars element come into it, aside from just being the backdrop? Because it sounds like you're wanting to just take the Firefly and her crew and drop her in Star Wars. Is that essentially what you're describing?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Because if you really think about that, it would be uh, such an interesting idea to put them into the Star Wars universe. Kind of like how, like, I know there's a ton of different DC Danny Phantom fan fictions that you have talked to me about.
Hey,
So
you
it's
gotta
like,
call me out like that, love.
I love you. Yes, my wife reads fan fiction. But so like you so
Why
I
is
just
she
to
doing
pause you
this
right
to me?
there and saying, "Oh my goodness, this is so funny," and I don't know how much trouble you're going to be in, but just keep going.
I'm
No,
not
don't
gonna be in
keep
trouble.
going.
So
Ah!
like the only crossovers that I know of have been what you've told me about, like the what you've read. So like that's what I have to go off of. And I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. It was not my intention. But that's just what I have to go off of. I had to have something to be able to talk about here with yours.
Okay, but like you could have waited until I gave my spiel and then we could talk about the spiel itself. But it's fine. It's all right. We're moving forward now. um so yeah, Danny Phantom, DC Universe. I okay, yeah, sure. He's already said it. Yes, I am a fairly avid reader of fan fiction in general. And one of the things that intrigues me about the idea of a crossover between these two universes is just how well that they can mesh, right? Because you've got, the Justice League, right? That Earth, that version of Earth is there's already an establishment for like metahumans, right? Um, and aliens and the whole gamut, You've got the Justice League Dark, we've got ghosts, like all of this is understood. Um, and so to bring in this half ghost superhero, like of course he would slot in perfectly, but there are other implications that I think would be really fascinating to follow. So like in the Danny Phantom TV show, um, this little small town that they live in called Amity Park has a lot of random crises, At one point, I think the town even gets like uprooted from Earth and dragged into the ghost dimension. Um, and like so there's a lot of stuff that happens, like a lot of things that would very much attract the attention of wider heroes in the DC universe. Um, and what I love is when people run with the idea of, well, let's say that these two, Amity Park exists in the DC universe. Why did the Justice League never show up to help? like what happened? Like what is it that was different about this little area of the United States that the Justice League either ignored, didn't notice, or just straight up didn't know about, you know? And Danny being a young hero and growing up and having to do all of this himself, what happens when, let's say the Justice League finally figures out, hey, there's this hero and whatever, let's invite him to be part of the Justice League. Cool. How would he react? Like, y'all never helped me when I was a kid. Get out of here. Like, would he be there? There's just so much really cool potential there. Um, Dragging in this lone vigilante half ghost hero who's had to do everything pretty much on his own into a world where there are established heroes, where there's a precedent for all of this, and just kind of exploring, what would it be like for him to be part of that wider world. I just think it's really cool. Hello?
Yeah, for me,
Oh.
like I am an avid Star Wars fan. I had always watched the main trilogy of Star Wars growing up, so like I knew a lot about them. I watched a lot about Star Wars. I watched some of the Clone Wars, but didn't really get into like watching all the way through the Clone Wars until a couple of years ago. But now that I've watched all of the Clone Wars, I want more of just like the outer world the outer worlds like kind of areas. Because like yeah, you see the movies have done such a good job of talking about like all of these like mainstream areas of Star Wars, but places that they haven't talked about is a lot of like these outer world areas, and I think it would be really interesting to have a crew that's doing different jobs, doing a lot of stuff in the outer worlds. I just think it could be a really fascinating um, idea.
So here's my only thing about the whole Firefly Star Wars crossover, and it's part of the reason why I ditched the Star Wars Star Trek one. They're just a little too similar, right? The if you picked up the Firefly crew and their ship and dropped them in the Star Wars universe, they would almost blend in, right? Like it's not unusual for them to be there. And when it comes to crossovers, like there has to be some level of believability as to how these two different worlds would mesh together and to come into contact. But when that Venn diagram starts turning into a circle, then it's kind of like, it's we could do other things here, right? And I feel like Firefly with Star Wars is a little bit too close to a circle instead of a Venn diagram. Whereas with like Danny Phantom and DC stuff, there's enough of that believability. You've got that little center point in the Venn diagram, but there's a lot of difference to make it interesting, where it helps provide that groundwork for conflict in a story, and where different ideas can be explored that we don't really see in the source materials. And so that's my big thing.
Part of my thing is like I don't actually know anything about Danny Phantom because I didn't grow up with cable. So the only cartoons that I got to watch growing up were at my grandmother's house, and I typically was watching like Tom and Jerry or Looney Tunes or like the Clone Wars. So like I never got to I never watched anything like Danny Phantom. Also, my parents had weird views on certain shows, so Danny Phantom is probably a show that I would not have been able to watch growing up. So I don't have like the basis for under the ability to be able to actually have a conversation about like I don't know how that would even fit in the DC universe because I don't know anything about Danny Phantom and like the story of Danny Phantom.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's just so I don't know. I'll give you like the little 2-second synopsis. It's about a kid who's the son of a couple of researchers who research ghosts, and they're also like ghost hunters. And through a lab accident, he ends up becoming half ghost. And ghosts start invading Earth from the ghostly dimension, and he takes it upon himself to fight them off. All the while keeping his identity a secret from his parents because he's scared of them because they're ghost hunters and he's now part ghost. And trying to keep the city that he lives in protected. Cool. But yeah, I feel like there's so much unexplored potential, you know. Yeah. I don't know. I love stories that have a cool premise, you know, teen superhero kind of deal. Like that's pretty solid premise for just about anything, right? There's so many teen vigilantes that we see in movies and comics and TV shows and whatnot. Um, but you know, to pick ghosts, right? Ghosts is so unusual in like a superhero story, and there's a whole lot about like the ghosts and the ghostly dimension and how all of that operates that's unexplored in the source material. And so that's where I think that like in fan fiction or in like crossovers especially, there's a whole lot more freedom to try to explore that. Say, hey, what if it was this way? And you know, suddenly we've got Batman there, and because Batman's great, right? Um, yeah, I think that because of the vastness of these two stories, like the source material and stuff, there's just so much room to work with, right? Whereas, you know, Star Wars is a very, I mean, goodness, look at how much Star Wars material we've got to work with, right? Um, but again, I just that the thing that's really getting me is just Firefly is so similar. You know, it's honestly, if you look at something like the Mandalorian, wow, Firefly and the Mandalorian have a lot of similarities there, and so I feel like because they're so similar, you don't have that room, that wiggle room for let's explore strange things. Like let's explore what this could look like and that could look like and how it would interact together, you know.
The
So
problem with I would have with like the comparison between Firefly and The Mandalorian is The Mandalorian has mostly just turned into the Grogu show. Like it's not
yeah.
even about it's not about the Mandalorian anymore. And that's what I want. I want something that's more that actually has risk to it. And like the story of Mandalorians has been told so much, I wouldn't I wouldn't consider them in the same sphere because uh, Firefly would not be Mandalorian. They wouldn't have that code of ethics. They would be much more morally gray. It would be, it honestly could make a very interesting story.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing that love. Sorry.
Okay, so it is Gracie first, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. So my biggest thing is I just think that Firefly and Star Wars are just too similar. They don't make enough of a Venn diagram. Whereas with Danny Phantom and like DC's Justice League and you know all the various Batman comics and all of that, there is just enough similarity for there to be a believability as to why they would exist in the same universe. But there's so much difference that there it's ripe ground for like good conflict and good storytelling, and you could just explore so many really cool ideas in both source materials. And yeah, I just think it would overall it makes for a better crossover. Something that's really fascinating that will really grip your attention. That's new. That isn't just the same thing reflavored.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
For me, I don't think it's the same thing reflavored. I think it would be a very interesting concept of a crew that primarily works in the outer world, because we've never had that. Even Han Solo and his crew, from what we know, not much in the outer world. Like I know he's done some jobs in the outer worlds, but I'm wanting to see something that primarily works in the outer worlds, doesn't really come into contact with like the big city area of Star Wars. Like I and being able to explore different races of the outer worlds that we haven't seen before. Like I would love for something to explore. Oh, what's the captain on in Rebels? The blue people. Forget what race he is, but we know almost nothing about their race because their world is so far out. I would love to have some sort of crew that works the outer rims that would be able to somehow just stumble upon their world. I think could make a very interesting story.
Okay, that's it.
Are you talking about Thrawn, love?
Hmm?
Are you talking about Thrawn?
Yes, I'm talking about Tron.
The Chiss.
Chiss, yes.
So, for our last question, I basically asked these guys, "Hey, would y'all want to talk about this?" And the question is simple and probably has been talked about for, I'm not even sure whenever one of these comic books came out, but at least the last 70 years, and it's probably going to go on till the end of time. Simple, Marvel or DC. And so, Gracie, you get to start whenever you're ready.
Wonderful. So, I am a massive comic book fan. I have read many Marvel comics. I've read even more DC comics. And I have to say, if we're just looking at comic books, because let's be honest, that is the bread and butter. That's the heart of these two entities, is their comic books. I'm gonna have to go with DC. I feel like the breadth and width of their storytelling is more grounded while also keeping that fantastical flair. Um, Marvel goes a little too hard, a little too fast into the multiverse craziness, and the storylines, in my opinion, get so easily muddled. Whereas DC just does a good job of keeping things grounded and also just creating really vast and well-rounded and fascinating characters. And so I'm a DC fan.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Johnny.
So I grew up being a huge Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man was like my dude. Like I had a Spider-Man costume. Like if my family let me do trick-or-treating, I would have dressed up as Spider-Man. My grandmother, for the longest, most people on here is probably too young to know this, but in the Sunday paper, or just when the paper that my grandmother got, for some reason she was getting Spider-Man comics with her newspaper. So I managed to build up such a vast amount of different comics of Spider-Man, and it made me fall in love with Marvel and all the different superheroes that are in Marvel. And I've just never been a huge DC fan in general, and I'll get into more of that when we start debating, and I'll actually just call it there.
So, my love, I I love Spider-Man too. I grew up on Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man is amazing. I also grew up on quite a bit of X-Men. Nightcrawler is one of my all-time favorites. However, here's my big thing. Um, Marvel has a couple of heroes, a couple of things, right, that they do exceptionally well, you know? Um, but golly, they really get into the weeds, right? I've read a lot of like X-Men comics, especially. They dive headfirst into all that multiverse nonsense, and it gets so confusing. It gets really just befuddled, and it loses you so fast, right? Their scope just gets too big, too wide. Um, and it for me it loses me, right? Like I feel like Marvel's got a couple of those really good ones, but in my opinion, like DC has a larger selection of really solid storylines, right? I've read like every Nightwing comic up into gosh, like freaking 2011, you know? Um and I've read like Sideways was a really cool hero. I wish he had a longer run. Um I've read just a lot. Like it's a lot of like the Batman stuff as well. Batman's fantastic. The Super
Talk
Sons
about
was great, you know.
multiverse. Talk about multiverse. Huh. How many different Batman and Robins do we need? There's like 30.
Oh, okay. No, wait. Here we go. Though, love.
It's
That's
like, oh, this Robin, cool, Robin dies. Cool. Oh, new Robin's here, cool, Robin dies. Oh, new one, here, cool, dead. Like, hey, I will 100% agree with you on the whole multiverse crap. I hate multiverse. I think with the whole idea of the multiverse, it should just stick with the Spider-Verse multiverse series movies that they've been making, because that has been very well made. Like the main series of multiverse makes no sense to me, and I'm not a big fan of it. But you're also arguing for the side that has Green Lantern, the most basic, kind of gross looking superhero there is. Kind of just dumb.
what do you mean basic and dumb? Green Lantern's cool.
You know what we have on Green Lantern? A movie that literally was one of the biggest flops in DC, period. It was
Okay,
the stupidest thing ever. Probably one of the stupidest movies I've seen.
this is why I specified comics if I'm looking at the comic books. Because yeah, DC's got a lot of live action flops.
I will say that I did say DC or Marvel. I wasn't specific, so I just wanted to clarify that. So y'all can talk about
Okay,
anything.
so anything. Okay.
That's,
Uh,
if you're just that's the problem, because if you're just gonna argue from the comics, there's honestly not really a good debate against that. Comics are just words. Like I get there's like a lot of the X-Men multiverse stuff can be kind of wonky, but like when it comes to media that most of us know, because I can probably say for certain 90% of us are not as much avid readers as you are when it comes to reading all of the different comics and fan fictions and stuff about these different people in DC. Most of us have no clue about that stuff. So what we have to base it off of is the movies that we've seen, which is basically where I am at. And like the Batman movies are good. Don't get me wrong. Batman's cool. He is the creepiest superhero ever. Yeah, I'm gonna wear all black, show up behind you, and Batman, and then yeah, and fight crime that way. It's creepy. Sorry, but when it comes to like Marvel, like you have some of the best movie, like superhero movie in our generation have been Marvel. You've got the Iron Man movies are wonderful. The Captain America movies are wonderful. The the Avengers movies before it gets to this uh all the way up to Endgame, phenomenal. Black Panther, wonderful. And I know a lot of the comics for Black Panther are also very good. I don't know them. I haven't read any of the Black Panther comics, but I've heard they're very good. Across the whole, all the other ones I just mentioned, and then like we have 3 different fantastic interpretations of Spider-Man. Like the Tom Holland is probably the best overall Spider-Man we ever had, and then the first one he was the best Peter Parker. The second one was the best Spider-Man, and then you had Tom Holland. It's like we're
So
batting
just to
1,000 right
clarify,
now.
you're talking about Tobey Maguire being the best Peter Parker, and you're talking about Andrew Garfield being the best Spider-Man, just to clarify.
Yes,
Okay.
we're batting 1,000 right now when it comes to Spider-Man. There's not been a bad Spider-Man. Like, have certain Spider-Man's not been good at certain parts of Spider-Man? Yes. But to have an actor that's basically perfect at both being Spider-Man and Peter Parker, not possible.
So, okay, movies, right? There have been some absolutely disastrous Marvel flops with a lot of the recent X-Men's. They just didn't do a good job. Like, have you seen the most recent Nightcrawler? They absolutely butchered that man, right? Like, so DC isn't the only one out here with flop movies, and I get it. Like a lot of the initial live action DC movies kind of felt like they were trying to play catch up with Marvel's movies. DC has got some really great movies though. The most recent Superman, oh my goodness, that was fantastic. That was a great movie. Like there are some really good ones out there, and honestly, like if we're just looking at it as a whole, like cool, let's drag in the TV shows as well. DC does an amazing job with their animated TV shows. They've got some absolute bangers when it comes to, you know, their whole catalog there. I just think that my biggest thing is that Marvel does a couple of things really well. Like they've got a couple of storylines, a couple of characters that are phenomenal. I just feel like DC overall has got a lot more skill when it comes to just general storylines, general character building. We've got more variety without having just one or two that are doing really good and everything else is just kind of trailing on its coattails. No, like we've got a lot of really good, strong contenders in the DC universe in general, that have really great storylines to follow. You know, so it's like everybody
So another one.
Okay.
Another one of DC's recent really bad flops is the second Wonder Woman movie. So first one was actually done pretty well, and actually a pretty decent movie. Then we get to the second one, where they basically just butchered the entire movie. Let's make it not make a whole lot of sense, and then the guy that I love dies. So cool, I'm gonna throw his spirit into this person so I can have sex with him. Yeah, that's terrible story writing. It is god awful story writing, and that's recent DC. If that's the kind of garbage that they're putting out recently, I'm not gonna trust a lot of what they're doing. If this is the kind of garbage that they're gonna throw out. What has Marvel had recently? No Way Home is the most recent Marvel movie that just came out, and I'm sorry, love, you cannot deny that is probably one of the best superhero movies ever made. It was done so beautifully.
Okay, so Wonder Woman 84 came out 6 whole years ago, Lovey. That's not, yeah, okay, cool. It was not great, but like that is not the most recent thing DC has come out with. Live action, the most recent Superman, amazing. Before that, there are some conflicted opinions about Blue Beetle, but as a major, major, major fan of the Blue Beetle comics, I thought they did amazing with that movie. They kept so close to the spirit of the storyline. Like the characterization was great. DC has done pretty well
I would say
recently.
that
They're
was a
getting
pretty
their footing
decent.
back.
I would say that was a pretty decent movie. But the
Yeah.
majority of what they've made has not been great movies. Like, are they good at making good comics? Of course. But so was Marvel. Marvel is also fantastic at making good comics.
No, and that's what I'm
TV
saying, my
shows.
love, though.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna put this into 3 different tiers, okay? So we have comics. I would say they're about even when it comes to comics because DC has some phenomenal comics from what you've said, and from what I know of Marvel's comics, some of the best Marvel comics or some of the best comics out there are Marvel. So I would say that they're pretty even there. When it comes to TV shows, when it comes to this conversation of Marvel versus DC, I would definitely say DC has done a better job. I won't that's a I'll put my hands up in the air and give up. But when it comes to movies, I would 100% say that Marvel has done a better job when it comes to live action movies for that whole conversation. So I would, in a lot of ways, it's probably more close to a tie than it would be one's better than the other. But I would still give Marvel a leg up because you know who we have our thing that tips us over the top? You know who that is? Our boy Stanley. May he rest in peace. Mic drop, conversation over.
Levy, here's my thing. Okay. Marvel does have some amazing comic books. Absolutely. I would agree with that. But the thing is, I don't know if I would say that Marvel and DC are on equal footing with their comics. I feel
So
like
you, so you think the 10 different Robins is better?
that is one specific instance. What are you talking about? Also, y- mm, y- that isn't something that happened over a year, right? It was as these characters grew older and moved on in life, it was a natural progression in the storyline. It wasn't just, oh, well, we're tired of this after we're tired of Dick Grayson after a couple years. Let's throw somebody new up in there. No, it was a natural progression of the storyline over
Oh, cool.
decades.
So cool. This Dick Grayson's done. Let's throw another one in there.
So you think that having 5 billion different Earths is the best ever, where the X-Men are jumping through universes and people are getting lost, and we've got some random dude popping out of Earth 359 to come and help things out, and oh, this person has definitely died, but now they've come back 10 times over because multiverse.
So I've already given you that point. So like that's not even a you can bring that back up. I've already said I hate the multiverse crap that Marvel is pulling in right now. It doesn't make a lot of sense and there makes it to where um there's no real consequences. But the thing is DC's doing the exact same thing.
Here's my point though about that, love. That's Marvel's shtick. Is that whole multiverse of madness, all of that. That's Marvel's shtick throughout a lot of their comics, a lot of their movies, a lot of their shows and everything. DC, yes, they do kind of play around with the whole multiple dimensions and the Earths and whatnot. It's not their shtick. And they do it in such a way that it's not the main focus and they can still keep stuff grounded. And that's why I think DC's got a little bit of a leg up particularly in the comics, but also with like a lot of their TV shows and stuff, is they keep it grounded. They don't get lost in all of that. They don't make it their whole identity. And yeah, Marvel's live action movies, absolutely, they've done a better job. But overall, though, it's just they keep clinging to all of that crazy multiverse theory and everything, and it just bogs all of the storytelling down. And DC, they do a much better job handling it and keeping their stuff grounded in reality. And I feel like that gives them better stories overall speaking.
Yeah. So on the same thing is like something I haven't brought up is X-Men. Like you talked about how there's all the different multiverse. If you just cut out all the garbage multiverse stuff, which I already hate, I've already admitted that. But if you just throw in like X-Men as a group, it is such an interesting concept of all these different mutants and like Wolverine, one of the pinnacle superheroes in all of DC and Marvel. And then like you've got the Deadpool and Wolverine crossover. Honestly, just fun. Like I'm not a fan of like all the crossover stuff, but the way that they did all the multiverse stuff in that specific movie was very fun, and it didn't make no sense.
Okay. So Johnny, you get the first closing statement.
Yeah. So, where me and my wife very much disagree. She is so much of the Batman, Robin, Dick Grayson. She's in like that's her favorite. That's her person. Him and Blue Beetle. But like they're side characters. Like Blue Beetle is not the side character, but Robin is not even the main person. So it's like, are we watching this media for the side characters, or are we watching it for like the actual main people? Like when you really think about like the Marvel movies, it's all about the main character in the stories. It's not about the side character that's just alongside. And there's not 15 different of them. And like, even with all the multiverse stuff, the main characters don't change. Like, is there a second Captain America that we see? No. Is there
well, we're going to end it right there because that's a minute. So,
Cool.
Gracie, whenever you're ready.
So here's my thing with the X-Men that Shawnee specifically mentioned. The X-Men's overarching storyline is inseparable from time travel and multiverse nonsense. Dick Grayson isn't just a side character. He is Nightwing. He's had his own comic run for decades at this point. DC has got so many good frontline solo characters that are amazing without running into all of the time travel multiverse nonsense that Marvel is inseparable from. Anyways, I just think that DC's just got a stronger library on their side. And Marvel just gets way too caught up in the weeds of jumping around in storylines that are far too wide and overarching that just muddies the waters. We don't actually get to. Marvel just gets way too caught up in the weeds, and they create these absolutely massive stories that just bog down the characters, and we lose the characters in the story and all of the madness of it all.
Well, cool. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Y'all had such a fun time, and it was fun listening to you guys. And I mean, I don't think y'all do anything on social media or anything. Right now would be the time to kind of plug it in.
No.
Guys, this is a show where you can react to stuff. So leave it in the comments. Who do you think was right or in some of these things. And maybe you have a better pick. So leave that in the comments as well. And also listen to our normal Kingdom Geeks podcast, which it talks about just movies, shows, video games, uh, uh, all that stuff. And it talks about the kingdom of God in those and just pointing out that, hey, all great stories point out the kingdom of God in the gospel. And one thing, if you want to know what I'm up to, and just sneak peeks at stories that will happen on that podcast, is check out my Twitch or my YouTube, Shaggy Batman, and you get to basically see me play some of these video games that I will do on the podcast. It's a little way where I can do my job, and y'all get a little sneak peek, and I try to advertise with doing that stuff. Well, thank you guys, and y'all have a good one. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Goodbye.